Coming up on this week's episode of the EV Resource Podcast, an electric jet concept with a controversial energy system. Polestar is set to open its first stores in the US later this year. XPeng's P7 has a light dance that's reminiscent of the Tesla Model X, and much more. Hello, friends, and welcome to the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and answers to your questions about electric vehicles. Special thanks to Titan Auto and Tire in Moseley, Virginia for their support for this podcast. Titan is one of the very few independent shops here in Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs. And from hybrids to Hummers, they can fix everything. Now, before we get to all the great EV news I've got lined up for you, I do want to remind you that if you like this podcast, please share it with a friend and make sure you subscribe so that you'll get all the future episodes automatically. All right, let's get to it. So first up in the news is a radical airplane concept that is designed by Michael Bonikowski. This is coming from robreport.com, an article by Michael Verdon. And he says that while the current trend in business aviation is all about creating the next generation of electric and hybrid-powered aircraft, a new kind of space race could emerge if the physics actually support the theory behind the Eather One. The Eather One is this concept airplane, probably many, many generations ahead of the current mode of thinking. According to an interview with Bonikowski, he told Rob Report that he was inspired by the recent Maverick concept by Airbus that has a swept-back incorporated wing design, where the aircraft's unique design helps reduce drag and also provide more cabin space. Bonikowski said that he's been thinking a lot about this lately and wondered what could happen if a big company like Airbus would actually create an electric plane. So he came up with a design that is potentially revolutionary, but as I have found out this week, rather controversial as well. The Eather One does not use traditional methods to power itself. It does have a battery pack where the electricity is used for takeoff and landing, but at cruising altitude, the Eather One uses friction between the air and high speeds of the jet as its primary source of renewable on-demand energy. Now, that might not make any sense to you. The first time that I read that, it didn't make any sense to me either. But what it is doing is when the aircraft is traveling at high speeds, the wings vibrate. And what this is doing is using triboelectric nanogenerators in the wings. Now, that is basically just technical speak for something that takes mechanical movement and converts that energy, the mechanical energy, into electrical energy. So the nanogenerators are basically taking the vibrations of the wings that are already there and converting that mechanical energy directly into electrical energy to then power the craft while it's at cruising altitude. So it doesn't need fuel tanks or very large battery packs because it's generating the electricity on demand. Now, where the controversy for this comes into play is that you can easily read into this that he's trying to develop a perpetual motion or perpetual energy machine where it's generating the energy it needs to travel. Well, anybody that's even a basic physics student would understand that there is no such thing as free energy. It cannot be created or destroyed, and you are not going to generate more energy in any kind of motion than what you use to propel yourself forwards. So these nanogenerators in the wings, there's no physical way, it goes against the laws of physics for it to generate the energy it needs to propel the plane forward. However, my suspicion is that it's not generating the entirety of the energy it needs to propel it forward. It's still going to generate some energy, just depends on how efficient and how effective it works. But then it's going to use the small amount of energy that's stored in the battery pack already to then make up the difference, especially on takeoff and landing, like I had said. So that's rather interesting. It's certainly a different way of thinking about energy generation. And by having smaller battery packs, that means that the plane can be much lighter. And also, as he had said in the beginning, much more space in the cabin for potential comfort of passengers. They won't all be crammed in like sardines. Now, this does look like it's going to be a smaller jet if it's ever built. Of course, this is purely just a concept, so there's not necessarily any realistic expectation that this will be created in real life at some point. But the idea of generating electricity using vibration in the wings that is already there, I think, is radical but also inspiring. That this type of design concept that pushes the bounds of what we typically would think about, that can often be put into commercial applications when these big companies like Airbus or potentially Boeing, if they took that into account, who knows? This could really affect the future of air travel 15, 20, 25, maybe 50 years from now. We might be able to see this type of energy generation applied to commercial aircraft in that time. Now, because I am not an aircraft or a physics expert, I did reach out directly to Mikhail Bonikowski, and I sent him an email asking him if he could help clarify some of how these triboelectric nanogenerators work and his idea for the aircraft. As of recording this, I have not yet heard back. I might not, but certainly if I do, then I will bring an update to this later on. Polestar has said that they are planning to open their first U.S. retail stores later this year in Los Angeles, New York City, and 2 locations in San Francisco, which makes it the latest milestone for the automaker as it gets closer to bringing its all-electric vehicles to market. Polestar, which is jointly owned by Volvo and Geely, was once a high-performance brand specifically under Volvo's cars. Of course, that has been spun off, and in 2021, they are planning on bringing the Polestar 2 right here to the US. Now, the Polestar 2, I've talked about previously on the podcast. It is their first full electric vehicle. The Polestar 1 was a performance hybrid. So the company is set to open their physical retail showrooms that they're calling Polestar Spaces. Those plans have slightly been delayed due to all the stay-at-home orders prompted by the COVID-19 pandemic. But the stores are expected to open in the second half of 2020. People here in Virginia or the central mid-Atlantic region are going to be more excited about Polestar's plans to then open its other stores in the first half of next year, with locations in Boston, Denver, Texas, Florida, and Washington, D.C. I will tell you, as soon as they open a Polestar space here in DC, it's only 2 hours from where I am, I will be up there and I'm going to take an in-person look and hopefully a test drive and do a full review of the Polestar 2. This is a vehicle that I've been very excited about. So I would love to get my hands on at least one for maybe an hour or two. The reason that they chose these cities is that more than 80% of the current reservation holders for the Polestar 2 actually live within a 150-mile range of the stores that are scheduled to open by mid next year, according to Gregor Hembro, who is the head of Polestar USA. So kind of following in the footsteps of Tesla, they are using a very untraditional dealership model. They are going to sell or lease the cars online and then have these physical stores to be a place where customers or EV interested folks like me and you can then get their hands on and touch and feel and sit inside the actual vehicle. So I think it's interesting that a lot of the newer EV companies, I mean, Polestar, you could consider a newer EV company as they are not Volvo. Certainly they're coming from all of that experience, but I think they're realizing that the next generation of car buyer or EV buyer is not looking to go to the traditional car dealership and have that traditional car dealership experience. Tesla has proven very well, actually, that you can buy cars online. You can use that model to sell hundreds of thousands of vehicles a year. And so I think that this is a good step for Polestar and should prove to be very successful for them as well. For those of you who are familiar with the Tesla Model X, you will probably have seen their light and dance show along to the Trans-Siberian Orchestra music. Well, I ran across a really neat tweet this week from the E4Electric Twitter account, where they're showing a video of the XPeng P7 doing a light show with the LED lights on the front of the car. I think it's really neat, but I was surprised that a lot of the comments under the tweet were very negative against XPeng doing this with their P7, saying that, you know, they're stealing from Tesla and that only Tesla should be allowed to do this. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Why would you keep anybody from being able to do this? Why should Tesla have all the fun, really? I think every auto manufacturer should include some sort of little hidden Easter egg feature, or even not hidden, really, that allows their vehicles to be fun and engaging. Of course, if you're sitting inside the vehicle, you can't experience this, but you know, outside of the front of the car, you get the music, you get the lights. This is a really, really neat feature. Is it functional? No. Is there a benefit to the car being able to drive further or have more performance? No. But that's not why you would have a light show. You do it because it's neat and it's fun and it's exciting. And, you know, you pull up to a car show or Cars and Coffee or something, you turn this on, you're going to have a crowd of people gathering to take a look and check it out. So I wanted to include a short clip to allow you guys to see a little bit. What I will do is provide the link to the tweet that E4Electric put out there, so that you guys can watch the whole thing. It's only about a minute long, so it doesn't take too long. But check it out and let me know what you think. Would you buy a car really that has this feature? Would you buy it because it has a feature like this over some other vehicle that might be otherwise comparable? Would this be that little edge that helps push you in the direction to buying the XPeng P7 over one of its competitors? I can't watch that without getting a big smile on my face. I think that is just so cool. I personally wasn't interested in the XPeng P7. I haven't really looked into it at all. Maybe I should. But this caught my attention. This catches my attention. And honestly, for me, it is one of those factors that I love a car that has a wow effect. And this definitely has that. Sorry for the audio on that clip. I was recording the screen, and of course it was using the speakers from the computer, so the audio was crap. But go to the link, go to the tweet, check it out for yourself, and let me know what you think. There's been a lot of buzz recently about the new upcoming all-electric Mini Cooper SE. According to Inside EVs, their own Tom Malogny got his hands on one a few weeks ago, and he's been putting out a lot of content, a lot of videos of his experiences with it as he's testing the range, performance, and so on and so forth. But one that I wanted to bring you that I really liked was actually a video by the Fastlane car on YouTube. And Inside EV's Stephen Loveday actually wrote a little article about the experience that Tom had with Kyle Connor from the Fastlane car. As they are both Mini enthusiasts, they put head-to-head the Mini Cooper SE against the Mini Cooper with the John Cooper Works package. Now that's gas-powered, turbocharged car, which is the top of the line performance when it comes to the Mini Cooper. So to put that against the Mini Cooper SE, I think made for a very fun comparison. The questions, of course, would be, does the electric Mini Cooper have what it takes to keep up with the top of the line performance from the traditional gas-powered car? Or, what's faster off the line? How about when you get to the twisty parts of the track? The John Cooper Works version does have more horsepower, but not by much. And that's really only due to how it's tuned, because, of course, with the turbo, you have to wait for the turbo lag. And so it's going to make a lot of its power in the upper RPM band once it gets going. Off the line, the electric Mini has immediate instant torque. So it should pull ahead quicker, you would think, but it is a heavier car. So it's definitely an interesting mashup. I'm going to put a link to the YouTube video from the Fastlane car in the show notes so that you can watch the whole thing. Occasionally when I'm recording this podcast, because I am doing it in the basement of my house, noises from upstairs from the kids or noises from outside will interrupt and I'll have to pause. And that's a big reason why I don't actually do this show live. Great example of that was just now, a neighbor from 2 houses down has an 800 horsepower cammed out V8 muscle car that he decided, 9 o'clock in the morning, he was going to start up, and it's his right to do so. It's a free country. So I ran outside real quick to try to grab a video of this thing. One argument against electric vehicles is that they're so quiet. Depending on how you feel about it, it might be an argument for or against. In this case, I still love the sound of that big throaty, V8. I love it. I really like that sound. However, those who might be trying to rest on a Saturday morning might not be too happy with our neighbors having such a loud car. Having an EV would certainly help in that aspect, but you're not going to get that rumble. But this is 2 houses down, and it interrupted me here in the basement. So this startled my wife, who was sitting upstairs on the couch. But I grabbed a little video because I wanted to share with you. I think this is a pretty cool car. It's an interesting argument, and I'd love to hear your opinion. Does an EV improve by having basically zero noise? I mean, not nothing. I mean, we know at this point that EVs do make a sound, but is it an improvement to remove this loud, some might call obnoxious disturbance from our neighborhoods? Or are we missing something with an EV when we don't have this sound? Well, if you have a Tesla Model S, Model 3, or Model X, you might not have to give up the sound of that throaty V8 or even a V10 or something along the lines of a V12 that you'd find in a Ferrari or Lamborghini or Aston Martin. You can have that sound to go along with your Tesla. Milltek, they are a company that is making an active sound generator that you can install in the rear of the Model 3, Model S, or Model X that makes it sound like it has an engine, and the exhaust note comes through. You can control it with your phone. I think I actually put this on the podcast a while back, a guy who had done this with his Model 3. There is a new video circulating this week of a Model 3 with the exhaust note. It's connected to the car directly, so when you go faster, the sound from the exhaust goes faster. When you're sitting there, it sounds like it's a car idling. This is a rather expensive, expensive is relative, I guess, but it's pricey. It's a couple $1,000s to be able to include this with your Tesla. But, maybe if you're the person that wants that V8 muscle car sound, but you want the performance and the luxury and the option of turning the sound off with a Tesla, maybe this type of product is the best of both worlds. I'll go ahead and put a link to Milltek Sport, their product page for this. You can get all the details from that, as well as the latest video of a Tesla Model 3 with the exhaust note. Volkswagen certainly hasn't been shy of its future EV plans with the ID series and the MEB platform. And of course, we are already familiar with the Porsche Taycan and the upcoming Audi GT performance model. But there's a new report that is saying that the German car maker will include turning the R brand into an electric performance brand. According to carscoops.com, VW Group board member Jürgen Stackman spoke recently with Top Gear, saying that the future R models will not only be exciting cars, but will also go electric. He said the future of R needs to be and will be electric, that they're still working on what they started on 2.5 years ago, which was obviously not electric, but the work going forward is and will be electrified. The future of the R brand has already started, of course, as Volkswagen recently revealed the Touareg R, which is their hybrid super SUV at this point. It is going to be fitted with a plug-in hybrid powertrain. The 3-liter V6 is going to put out 336 horsepower, but it will be mated with a 130 horsepower electric motor and a 14.1 kilowatt hour battery pack for a combined 456 horsepower. So if this is a sign of things to come, I'd say that the future is very bright. Of course, we can't forget Volkswagen's ID.R, which has been their very, very purpose-built essentially electric race car that they designed with the sole purpose of destroying lap records around the world. And it has been doing that very well. There are plenty of videos of the ID.R on different tracks that it's just far and above the performance of the traditional gas engine vehicles that until recently had held the record. So putting the R badge on that vehicle, I think, is a really good sign of things to come. I would love to see Volkswagen take the Golf R, which as of yet is still fully gas powered. I'd love to be able to see them electrify that, have an all-wheel drive, full electric hot hatch. They could probably do that with the ID.3, make that the ID.3R, and you know, I could dream and dream and dream. My wife has a Volkswagen GTI that is very much a performance car, but it's a turbocharged engine that requires a lot of maintenance. So to have electric motors and full EV power, especially with the torque that would provide, I think it would be something I would love to see from Volkswagen. And maybe we'll see that. At this point, it looks like that is their path forward. They recognize that. They are going full steam ahead. Now it's just a matter of to stop talking about it and to get it done. So the last bit of news is actually related to a product that I think would be very interesting to a lot of you for your car, for the interior of your car. These days, everybody is thinking more about their health during the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis. And a lot of us, including myself and my wife, are looking for ways to stay safe and healthy in our cars too, because we don't want to be so cooped up here at home. So I'm actually really excited to share an announcement that just came out from Tint World. They are the automotive styling centers. They have partnered with BioPledge to offer antimicrobial protection that instantly kills viruses, bacteria, mold, mildew, algae, and yeast, all without the use of harmful chemicals or scented masking agents. Everybody knows that depending on the season, air outside can be harmful, especially to people who suffer from allergies or asthma. But indoor air quality, including the air inside your car, can also be full of those harmful microbes and allergens. So BioPledge helps keep your car's air quality high by keeping the allergy-causing mold and mildew from growing while killing the other microbes too. And a lot of those microbes are often the source of unpleasant odors inside the car as well, so BioPledge helps keep your vehicle smelling fresh. If you guys are ready to make your vehicle's air fresh, safe, and most importantly these days, healthy, it's time to find out more about BioPledge. give a shout to your local Tint World Automotive Styling Center. If you're in the area where I am, you can reach out to Tint World on North Chesterfield on Midlothian Turnpike, and they'll be happy to explain more about BioPledge and get you started. Now, my wife just had this done to her car, the GTI, and I have to tell you that both of us can, at this point, literally breathe a sigh of relief, or at least have this peace of mind that while she's driving around, she's not going to have all this air inside her car, or that might have been harmful, or touch surfaces that would have had any kind of bacteria or allergy-inducing allergens on it. You know, I mean, it's one of those things that before all the coronavirus stuff, I probably wouldn't have given much thought to, but now, I mean, there is no going back to before, right? This is the new normal, and I honestly can say that it just makes sense. So I did have 2 EV questions that I wanted to answer this week, and as long as you guys keep them coming in, I will probably do 2 or more on each podcast episode. So the first is actually sent in by Katie. Katie, thank you very much for this. Katie wants to know, how long can we expect an EV to last? So generally, the answer to that really is that EVs will probably last longer than their gas-powered counterparts. They have less moving parts. As a whole, the drivetrain, you know, a gas engine has thousands of parts to it, where an electric motor has less than 5, usually. So from a maintenance and mechanical standpoint, EVs just have less problems. Now, the big limiting factor to an EV in terms of how long it will last is, of course, going to be not with the EV motor, but with the battery. The first generation of EVs, like the Nissan Leaf, did have issues with premature battery degradation. A lot of the older hybrids, because of how the batteries were used, they went through a lot of cycling. You wouldn't expect to get many years out of them. However, EVs of the now, you know, that are being built right now, can easily last beyond 200,000 miles for the battery. Most of the warranties are 8 to 10 years. So you can expect that the car is going to last just as long as your gas-powered car, if not longer. There's a lot of conditions that will affect that, though. You know, how you're driving, how you're charging. If you're doing a lot of fast charging and fast acceleration, you know, where the battery is going to be charged and discharged very quickly, that can harm it or cause some premature wear. And of course, if you live in a climate with excessive heat or excessive cold, that's going to affect how long your car, well, at least the battery, lasts as well. So the short answer is probably longer than your gas-powered car. The long answer is there are a lot of factors that will play into that. But generally, you can expect to get many, many, many miles out of an EV, and over the course of those miles, be spending a lot less money on maintenance. The second question was sent in by Brian. Brian asks, why don't electric cars just have solar panels all over them to keep the battery charged so that you can drive without needing to plug in? Well, the simple answer to that is that solar panels just do not generate enough electricity per square inch to make sense. To get the amount of energy you would need to charge an electric car that's comparable to plugging it in, you would actually have to cover a rather large area, bigger than the surface of the car. So even if you had the entire surface of the car, the roof, the hood, the trunk lid, all of that covered in solar panels, it would take a very, very long time in perfect conditions to fully charge the EV battery on your average EV. There are a number of EV models that are coming out with solar panels on them, but that is more as an auxiliary charging, because most people are going to have their car sitting in a parking lot under the sun all day long. So that'll help regain maybe 1 or 2 miles per 8 hours that it's sitting in the parking lot. The short answer really is that it's not feasible at this point. The technology just isn't there when it comes to solar power. You could probably expect to get maybe a half a kilowatt or 1 kilowatt of power out of solar panels that are on the roof of the car. So it just doesn't make sense. But I think if you are plugged in at night and using solar panels during the day to maybe keep the cabin at a comfortable temperature, like to run the AC compressor and fans, that is an application for solar panels that I think makes a lot more sense. To charge the battery so that you have enough mileage to drive around all day, that's where it starts to fall apart. So that is all for this week. Thank you, as always, to everyone who supports the show, either by simply listening or sharing with your friends, or by supporting on Patreon, which is a website where you can support creators with a small financial contribution. You can find us there at patreon.com/EVResource. Patreon is spelled Patreon. And I invite your feedback via email to hello@ev-resource.com. You can always leave a comment on the YouTube channel, or if you want to listen to any of the previous shows, you can find them on the webpage under the podcast section and on any of the major podcast platforms. Any reviews that you would be willing to give on Apple Podcasts would be greatly appreciated. It helps us rank a little bit higher, so that people who are looking for great EV information can find it. And always, I invite you to come say hi on social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's where the conversation really happens. I want to engage with all of you. But thank you very, very much for being with me, and I will catch you next week.